Hello, my dear students. I'm Ms. Tujan, an English teacher for grade 10. Today, we are going to review the use of words like who, whom, whose, which, and that, and when they are used as relative pronouns. So join me in this grammar lesson and let's get started. A relative pronoun is used after a noun to make it clear which person or thing we are talking about. The information that follows the pronoun is contained in what we call a relative clause. There is often some confusion about which word to use in different situations. Sometimes we want to give information about a person, sometimes about an object, and sometimes it's about something that belongs to the person or the object. So in this lesson, I will clarify the following. What is a clause? Types of clauses. What is a relative clause? The usage of relative pronouns and relative adverbs. When can you drop these pronouns in sentences? Using prepositions with relative pronouns. Defining and non-defining relative clauses. By the end of this lesson, you will have learned how to use these words correctly when you speak and when you write. So when you are ready, we can begin. I will define a clause and explain the differences between an independent and a dependent clause using some example sentences. What is a clause? A clause is a group of words containing a subject and a verb, and they form a sentence, starting with a subject and a verb. Look at this sentence. The student studied in the library. This is a clause. The student is the subject in this sentence, and studied is the verb. Now, clauses can be independent or dependent. What is an independent clause and what is a dependent clause? An independent clause makes sense on its own. It's a complete thought. In other words, an independent clause is a group of words that can stand alone as a complete sentence. Here is an example. The teacher explained the difference between a foreigner and a tourist. This sentence forms a complete thought and can stand alone as a sentence, so it represents an independent clause. What is a dependent clause? A dependent clause is not a complete thought and needs more information to be complete. In other words, a dependent clause cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. It needs to be attached to an independent clause to be complete. Look at this sentence. While I was studying in the library, this sentence is not complete. You don't know what happened while the person was studying in the library. So this clause is dependent and needs more information to be complete. There are some certain words that can help you identify the dependent clauses in a sentence. You can look for certain words that are commonly used to mark a dependent clause. These words are while, if, unless, although, because, since, and when. The use of any of these words indicate a dependent clause. Let's begin with relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are who, whom, whose, which, and that. Where do we use them? We use them after a noun. Why do we use them? To make it clear which person or thing we are talking about. For example, Tom is the boy who is standing beside the wall. Look at the underlined sentence, who is standing beside the wall. This is the relative clause, and the sentence starts with a relative pronoun, which is who. So the part of the sentence that gives the information about the person or the thing is a relative clause and starts with a relative pronoun. For example, the man who lent me the book. Who lent me the book, starting with who, which is a relative pronoun, is the relative clause, and you can see that it is underlined. The book which I borrowed is the relative clause, which starts with the relative pronoun which. Let's now have a look at which relative pronoun we must use in each case. Now, for people, we use the relative pronouns who, that, and whom. Who replaces subject pronouns like I, you, he, she, they, and we. Whom replaces object pronouns, be careful, object pronouns like me, you, him, her, them, and us. That replaces subject and object pronouns. Now let's look at the following examples. The man who or that lent me the book. Who or that replaces a subject. In this sentence, who defines the man or that defines the man, and the man in this sentence is the subject. So we are using who or that to define the subject, the man. The man who lent me the book or the man that lent me the book. Another example, the boy left to London. I know him. We have two sentences. Let's join them with a suitable relative pronoun. Look at the second part of the sentence, I know him. I is the subject. We decide the subject and the object in the second part of the sentence. I is the subject, know is the verb, and him is the object. Now let's join both sentences with a suitable relative pronoun. Him is the object, and it is defining the boy. So we want to define the boy. The boy whom I know, left to London. Whom I know is the relative clause. Why did we use whom? Because we are defining the boy, and the boy in this sentence is the object. You have to delete him and use instead whom. Now again, the sentence becomes the boy whom I know left to London. This sentence is different. I know the boy, full stop, he left to London. He is the subject and left is the verb. Now, we are going to define a subject, which is the boy. So you have to use a suitable relative pronoun immediately after the boy, which is the noun. I know the boy who left to London, and you have to delete he because we used who instead. I know the boy who left to London. For objects, we use relative pronouns like which and that. Which or that replace subject pronouns like it or they. Or they can replace object pronouns like it or them. Example sentence, I bought a new car. It is very fast. It refers to the car. So we want to define the car in this sentence. So you have to use a suitable relative pronoun after the noun car. The sentence becomes, I bought a new car, which is very fast, or that is very fast. Another sentence, we bought a house. The house is 20 years old. Let's join these two sentences. Now, we bought a house which is 20 years old, or that is 20 years old. You can use that instead of which. That or which, we can use them instead of the house. Now, for position, we use whose to show position, followed by a noun for people and things. Whose replaces the following pronouns, possessive adjectives, and you have to know them, like my, your, his, her, their, our, and Ali's with apostrophe and S. Let's now see an example which shows a position like the children are crying. Their mother died in the accident. The children's mother. So now let's both join these two sentences with a suitable relative pronoun. Instead of their, it shows position, so we have to use whose followed by a noun. The sentence becomes, the children whose mother died in the accident are crying. So delete their and use whose instead of their, followed of course by the noun mother. Now, when is it possible to drop a relative pronoun in a sentence, and when is it not possible? You can drop who, whom, that, and which if the information is related to the object of the sentence, but not when it is related to the subject. For example, the man who or that lent me the book. The man who lent me the book, or the man who that lent me the book. The man is the subject of the verb lend. Who or that in this sentence, they define the man, and the man is the subject. So you cannot drop who or that. It is necessary to use who or that in this sentence because they are defining the man, which is the subject. And the next sentence, the book which is called peace, or the book that is called peace. Book is the subject of the verb is. The book which, or the book that. So which or that in this sentence, they define the book, and the book is the subject. So you cannot drop the relative pronoun which or that. You have to use them. But in this sentence, the man who or whom I borrowed the book from. The man who or whom I borrowed the book from. Here, the man is the object of the verb borrowed. The man whom I borrowed. You can notice that I is the subject, which follows whom. I borrowed the book from the man. So the man is the object. I is the subject. And whom or who is the, or are defining the man, which is the object. So you can drop the relative pronoun who or whom, and the sentence becomes, the man I borrowed the book from. It's possible to drop who or whom. In this clause, or in this sentence, the book which I borrowed, or the book that I borrowed. The book is the object of the verb borrowed. I is the subject. I borrowed the book. I is the subject. So which or that, they define the book, which is the object. So you can drop the relative pronoun and the sentence becomes, the book I borrowed. It's possible to leave out which or that in this sentence.